Today we've got a special treat for you from St. Spyridon Orthodox Church in Loveland, Colorado, where Father Evan Armatas occasionally does what he calls a teaching liturgy. Now this is an opportunity for the faithful to see up close and personal some of the more subtle prayers and movements of the service that aren't often seen because the priest is celebrating behind the altar. So what Father Evan does is he'll take a table out, set it up in the nave, the faithful can gather around, we perform the liturgy, and at key moments, Father will stop and explain detail. Now this is an excerpt of that liturgy explaining a component, and we hope that you enjoy.
What do I have in my hands? A gospel. So I don't have the whole Bible, I just have the gospel. Now, are all the readings from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the gospel, which is the good news, are all the readings from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John found inside here? No. Not all of the readings. So if you have a Bible at home and you're reading the Gospel of Mark or the Gospel of Matthew, the stories about Jesus, you're not going to find all of those same stories inside here. So what stories about Jesus are inside this one? You think you know?
Miracles?
No, not just miracles. What do you think? His life? Not all the aspects of his life. So the readings inside this Bible are only the readings that we use when we serve a liturgy. So anytime we serve a liturgy, there's a specific reading that we read. And those readings are found here. Does anybody remember, it's a very funny reading, where Jesus has to pay some money to a tax man? Does anybody remember that story? Maybe some of us do. Jesus has to pay money to a tax man. And he tells his disciple, Peter, to go catch a fish. And he says, when you catch the fish, inside its mouth, you're going to find some money. And take that money and go pay the tax. Is that a strange story? And eat the fish, okay. Is that a strange story? That is a strange story. You won't find that story inside this pretty Bible. Because we don't ever read that story in a liturgy. It's not that important of a story. Now, what about the story when Jesus went to Jerusalem and everybody was waving palm branches? Remember that story? That's the story of Palm Sunday. That story we find inside this Bible. Because in this Bible are all the important stories that we read during liturgies. Now, what else is up here? I said to you earlier, there's other things up here. You might have seen them out there. There's a communion cloth. You see that? There's a communion spoon. Why would they be on this table? Anybody know? Why would we have them on this table? Someone who has an answer. Why do we have these on the table today? Someone who has an answer. I know you've already answered one. Because it tastes good.
No, she said sacred.
Oh, it's sacred. Yes, we are. High five. It's sacred. Why else might we have these on the table to Jack's wife? Because they're ready to use. You're right. Because today, whenever you come to church, and if you see the spoon on the table, what does that tell you? You're going to receive communion if you're ready. If it's not on the table, like at Vespers, or during the week, if you come, do you find the spoon on the table? No. So it's only put out when we're going to receive the Eucharist. Okay? Now what else is up here? See this? It's a cross. This is a special cross. Used usually only by the bishop. It's a blessing cross. And on one side we see the crucifixion. And look on this side. There's nothing on this side. Jesus is not on the cross. So on Sunday, sometimes on Sunday, the cross is placed this way because we don't remember Christ's crucifixion as much as we remember his resurrection. Okay? A couple other things on the table. We see the service books because the priest doesn't have everything memorized. He needs a service book. And we see these oil lamps. Why do you think they're oil? Anybody tell me why? Someone who has an answer. Why is it an oil lamp?
Because they
She's going to shout it out. Let's see if someone else knows. Okay. Why an oil lamp? Amanda, why an oil lamp?
Mercy.
Mercy. Oil, olive oil, that word, eleon, right, is close to eleos, the mercy of God. And there's a story in the Bible. Does anybody remember 5 wise virgins? And they brought enough oil and they could enter into the bridal chamber. So we have oil lamps up here. Last, and we're going to open this up in a little bit. But I'm going to open it now so I can teach you. You see inside there's a special cloth. Do you see that? See that red cloth? Okay, I'm going to open it up. This special cloth is called an andemitzion. Is that a hard word to say? Andemitzion. Okay, now, what happens if we don't have this cloth? We can't do liturgy. What? That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Now, if you want to stand up and come look and do it very carefully, you can come over here and look. And you're going to see a few things, okay? Down here, and Bishop Isaiah wrote it in Greek. He wrote his name, Isaiah. So he signed this, and he gave it to me when we started this church. So he said, here, Father Evan, take the andemitzion and go to Loveland and start doing liturgies, and you can start a church. Now, if Bishop Isaiah decided to close the church, what would he do?
Take that.
He would just take that back. Now, what would happen, sometimes this has happened in different parts of the world. If soldiers came and said, you have to close the church. You can't have church here anymore. All I would have to do is come take this cloth, and you and I could go to a secret place, a place where the soldiers couldn't find us, just like Christians used to do, and we could still have liturgy. Okay? Now, in the Old Testament, does anybody remember how the Jews, they were wandering through the desert, and then as they would wander through the desert, they would stop, and what would they set up while they were in the desert? A tent. A tent. What's a tent made out of? Cloth.
Cloth.
Yeah, and you can take it with you. Just like this. See how it's made out of cloth? So this reminds us that just like the Jews of old, we're not here permanently. How many people are going to stay on earth forever and ever? Nobody. Nobody's staying on earth forever. Where are we going? Heaven. Just like you go on a camping trip and you hike around. Be careful there. So we're going to walk through this earth and make our way to heaven. And here we have this andemitzion, which reminds us we're on a journey. Okay? Now on it we see Christ. See Christ right here? And they're laying him in a tomb. He's just come off the cross. And these words say, the King of Glory. Okay? Now, we see the evangelists. You see up here? Here's St. Matthew. Over here is St. I got to look at the words. John. St. Mark. St. Luke. Now look over here on the Bible. You have the same thing. Matthew, John, Mark, and Luke. The 4 writers of the Gospels. In the middle, we have an icon of Christ being resurrected. Over here is all scenes from Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. Okay? Now, does anybody have any questions before we go? Yes, sweetheart.
What's that piece of bread do?
This? So this is actually a sponge. Isn't that something? Does anybody remember in the story of Jesus when they used a sponge? When he was on the cross, they gave him a sponge filled with wine, and so we have a sponge, and the priest uses this sponge to clean his hands. You're going to see that when he's serving the liturgy, okay? Any other questions? Question? Probably not. Okay. Question?
What is that, the red thing?
This red thing here? This is where the bread is that the deacon will eat after he consumes the Eucharist after liturgy.
Okay.
Okay, let's all go have our seats and we're going to keep going in the liturgy, okay? We're going to be on page 45.
Getting it in peace, let us pray to the Lord. Help us, save us, have mercy on us, and protect us, O God, by your grace, wisdom.
And grant that always guarded by your power, we may give glory to you, to the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, now and ever, and to the ages of ages.